Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Insights from Entrepreneurs, CFES Brilliant Pathways ongoing series, talking with entrepreneurs from all kinds of backgrounds who started many different types of businesses. And appropriately, we're doing it live from Hula here today in Burlington, which is a maker space with a number of companies like Beta and Benchmark, who have started here and have really branched out. And a lot of times we like to talk to new entrepreneurs, and then we want to talk to entrepreneurs that created things a while ago and continue to create different businesses. Today, I'm extremely privileged and honored to talk to Lisa Lindahl, who, when I was growing up in Burlington, the invention of the jog bra was a huge deal. Ben and Jerry's. We were just talking about kind of Burlington being a entrepreneurial place at the time, and that now it's sort of a kind of a second 2.0, if you will, from kind of a tech standpoint. But I'll turn it over to Lisa and let her talk a little bit about what fascinating pathway, really, and kind of how she launched various entrepreneurial ventures that she's had, and she'll tell you a little bit about how she got to where she is today. So I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Hi there, John. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here and be a part of this. I like talking about the entrepreneurial experience because it can be very fulfilling. It can be very frustrating, but it can also be extremely fulfilling. And I don't know if you probably don't know this, but I was so not a candidate for being an entrepreneur. I was an artist, a student. I thought I was going to either maybe teach or, I really didn't think about going into business, but I was a runner and I was uncomfortable. And I thought, why isn't there a good athletic supporter for women? And so it was just an idea, and something that was solving my own problem. And I had just moved from undergraduate into graduate school at UVM. And I didn't have a driver's license. And I thought that this product that I thought of would be a nice little mail order business on the side while I went to school. And it just took off. It was amazing. And I knew nothing about first of all, it was a garment, right? It was a sports bra or the sports bra at the time. And I don't even sew. So I had no idea. Luckily, I found a friend who helped me turn this idea into fabric and elastic, and which is a whole other great story. Anyway, so I had no idea, what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, nor did I have aspirations of being an entrepreneur. It just happened. But most importantly, I was aware that it was not lingerie. This was athletic equipment. So I made what turned out to be a brilliant decision, which was to market it, to try and sell it to sporting goods stores, because the idea of it being a little mail order business failed immediately. I mean, one of the first, meaning retailers wanted it, dealers. And when we realized that was the route we went, but I knew nothing about the sporting goods industry, nothing. So, I mean, that's something I always say to starting out entrepreneurs, that the challenges and the obstacles are learning moments. If you choose to confront it and say, okay, this is what I understand, this is what I don't understand, and ask for help. That was another experience of mine. People were so generous with their expertise and their time. They were very willing to help, but you have to know to ask.
Yeah, and that can be hard. I know some of our students are hesitant to do that, but it is interesting when we've had other entrepreneurs say that too, that like with your mail order part, that it didn't work, and you had to somehow pivot to what did work, but you didn't give up just because that wasn't working.
Well, and even I don't know how I had the idea to start the patent process. Someone must have told me to do it, and I just went, oh, okay. And quickly found out at the time there are no patent attorneys in Burlington, Vermont. So someone gave me a name of this guy in Washington, D.C., where all the patent attorneys were at the time. And I went on that. I took that route. So again, and I didn't know that that was going to be as important as it became, actually. And so it was such a learning process. I mean, the other, besides persevere, which is a good piece of advice, the other one is to be authentic, I say over and over again, if you want to start a business or be an entrepreneur because you want to make money, you've got the wrong purpose. That's the chances for your success immediately go down a bit if that's your primary objective. It's important to make money to keep the enterprise going. But like in my case, I wanted to solve my own need. And I had heard from enough other women runners that, yeah, they experienced the same discomfort. And why wasn't there anything? And so it came out of passion. It came out of conviction. And oh yeah, by the way, I needed to somehow earn a living.
Yeah.
But we didn't pay ourselves very much money for the first 3 years, I have to say. But it didn't matter because, and that's the other thing to say, that I went and found partners. First, the woman who had helped me turn the idea into cloth, she was obviously my partner, but she was very clear she didn't want to do business because she was a costume designer and that was her path. And I said, fine, great. But she lived in New York. So she said, I'll help you with finding fabric and all that kind of stuff. And then my other partner, who I think, who was also living in Burlington at the time, she helped. She was also a costume designer, but that was not for her. And she liked the idea of turning this into a business. And she figured out the production and found a place to, which, by the way, one product, one color, 3 sizes is how we started. And no manufacturing facility was going to touch us. What? Who are you? They were doing thousands of units, Anyway, but Hinda luckily found someone who was just starting their own business like we were, and they were happy to figure out how to mass produce this prototype that I had. And so that was serendipitous. And it was also perseverance, because after realizing that we were not adequate, what's the word I want? No large manufacturing firm or established one was going to do business with us. So, but we kept looking, and Hinda found this couple that were starting their own business, and the rest literally is history.
Wow. And it's interesting how you said, we've heard this from other entrepreneurs, to like identify a problem that's out there that like you said, that you care about and are actually passionate about. Not, I'm going to make $10 million, but here's a problem, I want to fix it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And I love when you talk about, at CFES, we teach essential skills, we call them, kind of like soft skills. But you mentioned networking, you mentioned perseverance. It seems like when we get questions from students all the time, and they're like, and one of them to you is, are all the things that you talked about, like perseverance and the things that it took to be successful, do you think they're transferable over time, even to today?
That's a really interesting and good question, because, clearly how the marketplace operates has changed dramatically with the introduction of tech, but also with global business. I mean, now it's not just about selling in the US. You have the ability and the opportunity to sell around the world. But the basics, I've been thinking about this. I don't feel that the basics of initiating and running a successful business have changed. And you mentioned one of them. Is there a need? Is there a need for your product or service? Does it already exist? And if so, how are you different or better? What's your unique selling proposition? And if the same product or service exists elsewhere, how are you improving on it? Don't go into business to produce another widget, as they say. So, it's what is the product and who are the customers? Product, people, and it used to be place, especially when talking about a retail business or something. Now, the place is the world.
Yeah.
Or can be. And that's really very different. But product and people, not only the people that are your potential customers, but also who your partners and help mates are, is really, really important. One of the reasons I believe we succeeded, and I should say, we were profitable our first full year in business, and we didn't even know that was unusual.
Wow.
And we kept being profitable all through every year that I owned the business. So I forgot what I was going to say. Product,
Yeah,
place.
just that the world, you can sell it across the world now, but that
Right.
locally.
And
I
know what I was going to reference is one of the smart and early things that we did was hire a consultant. And that was a big deal because it was actually going to cost us money. But this was someone who knew business, who knew business systems. I mean, this is how naive and unexperienced I was. He explained to me what a break-even point was. And I went, oh, that's pretty cool. But he was very helpful. He taught me how to read financial statements. And, I flunked arithmetic, but I can read a financial statement. So that's what I mean about the people part. Find the people that know more than you do and would like to help.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've had others talk about sort of like they're not good at the business side, but they're good, like you had just said, at making garments. And you find three people that are good at each part that you need, to contribute to, and then you come together. Sounds like you almost organically kind of found other individuals that brought different things to the table, or were they just people you knew and you were asking questions?
Well, it was Burlington. So that was good. It wasn't New York City where a lot of people are anonymous. So word got around. And, one of the first things I did was, of course, find an accountant. Well, first an attorney who set up the corporate papers, and then who recommended me and, told me who the good accountants were. I hired a bookkeeper. And so word spreads. So someone said, gee, there's this, you could find a consultant who could help you with these things. Now, I had experience as a secretary, so I knew to set up systems, to have files, but I didn't want to maintain them. So our first hire was a bookkeeper. Our second hire was someone that would keep track of all the filing, and someone to do the shipping and warehouse, which, we were we started out in my living room and then had to move into a larger space. So literally we had the shipping and receiving right there. Anyway, those were the days.
So you did it, you're doing just everything right out of there. I mean, was it hard to even keep up once it got caught on to?
Oh, yeah. We used to have, I call them pizza nights, even though there really wasn't a lot of pizza involved, but where friends and family would come and help us, because we'd get some stuff in from the factory and we'd have to quality control it, look at it, make sure it was right, separate it into different sizes and different bundles, for all the orders that had stacked up that we had to fulfill. So the next part was fulfillment. And so we'd have people packaging and shipping. It was
Wow.
not for long. We didn't do that. We were able to start hiring people. And then we outgrew that space and moved into the Chase Mill in Burlington.
Oh.
Do you know it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, nice.
And so there's a whole floor that was our warehouse and shipping.
Is that right? Wow.
Well, probably half a floor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice space. And
Yeah.
then from there, what was the next phase? It kind of kept growing, and then was it
Well,
purchased?
this is one of the roles that the patent played, which was for the first, until the patent was issued, which back then it was before computers.
Right.
So it was a long process, took months. And during that time, no one could copy us because until they knew how to break the patent, by doing it a little differently, they couldn't. And again, here's an interesting lesson. I was told more than once, oh, nobody patents a garment. It's such an easy patent to break. All you have to do is change the thread or the kind of elastic. And for whatever reason, we didn't pay any attention to that. We went ahead, and it bought us that almost year of marketing where nothing else was available.
Wow.
And because there was such an instant demand, it got attention from all the people who were our competitors. Now, again, we were in the sporting goods industry. I have so many funny actually, they're in my book. Can I plug my book?
Please. Yeah.
It's called Unleash the Girls, the untold story of the invention of the sports bra. And there are so many funny stories. I mean, we went to our first trade show. We'd never been to a trade show. We didn't realize you needed a whole display.
Right.
We had a table with our bras lying on it and one poster of a woman wearing the bra. And there, people were standing. This is the first year we were in business, our first ever trade show, and it was the National Sporting Goods Trade Show. And there were people 3 deep standing in front of our table, and most of them were buyers. So it was the right product at the right time.
Yeah, that's wow. And is that I'm envisioning the show that you're at. Was it all like a lot of big players like Nike and all these?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, dartboards, bicycles, athletic clothing, which was actually kind of not as big as it is now. Something else I think it's important for aspiring entrepreneurs to hear is that had I done market research before deciding to do this, I probably never would have done it. Because what the market research would have told me is that bra sales, excuse the pun, had been flat for decades. And all the major players, Playtex, Wacoal, all these major bra manufacturers who were selling in department stores and lingerie stores, they were just for years, just stealing market share from one another. Who got it this year? Okay, who got it, and that's what the research would have told me. But I didn't know to do any research. Other than the only research we did was to see if maybe someone else had thought of this. And we went down to a local Burlington lingerie shop, Bertha Church, which I think still exists, and discovered, oh no, there wasn't anything. There was something called a tennis bra, but it was just a regular bra that was very white.
And that's fascinating because, like, if you did do the research, it's kind of an interesting point because you were so passionate and you intuitively were like, no, there's a need. I have friends who everybody's telling me this, yet the market research might have sent you in a different direction. But so you kind of did you're like, no, you believe that it was going to work. Whether you were to do the research or not, you maybe you wouldn't have gone forward with it, but I don't know. I mean, you had a gut
Well,
instinct.
I would have had to be smart enough to recognize that because we weren't going into the lingerie business, we were going to, that would make a difference. But I'm not sure I would have been savvy enough to understand that at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and today there's just so much information out there. It's such an interesting point that you make as a student or a young person who wanted to become an entrepreneur could probably get discouraged fairly easily just thinking like, oh, somebody's doing this somewhere already. How am I going to do it differently? Just a little bit of a different world, these, to decide that. But again, it's the need, you're looking for to fill a need. And um, research, I would assume, would flush out if there's one or not, but that's an interesting story. Yeah.
Well, and that's where perseverance comes in again, perseverance. And one of the things that I touch on in my book is the fact that I don't think it's possible to grow a business through all its different stages, and probably any enterprise through all its different stages, without having the ability to go through some personal growth at the same time. Because what I knew and what I thought I could do at the early stages, really I got challenged and had to change as the business grew. I had to grow. And if you can't do that, it's going to be much more difficult, much more difficult.
Yeah, we have a question actually that pertains just to that. And we've gotten it a few times. A young person has said, basically asked, should I go work? Let's say I know an industry that I think I want to launch something in. Should I go work in that industry to mature myself and understand that industry better and then launch? Or do I just go forth like you did and try and launch it and learn as I go?
That's a two-edged sword, as they say, because on one hand, it's great to OPM, other people's money. It's great to learn on other people's time and money. However, if you get stuck in that, or if what you're doing is out of passion and commitment, sometimes that can teach you that there are boxes and correct ways to do things. And, oh, you do this, but you never do that. And that can be detrimental. So I think it really depends on what it is you're looking to do, and be clear about your objectives for working for someone else, or clear about your objectives for going just ahead.
Yeah. We had students today actually that we took around Hula. They were asking questions like, what if I don't have it was about personalities basically. What if I'm not a risk taker? I have all these ideas, but I'm too scared. I want to go be a teacher because I know I'll get a salary each paycheck and I don't have to worry. I mean, is there a certain sort of psychological mindset or personality that would sort of lead one to be an entrepreneur more than another?
There have actually been studies about that. And rather than saying there is a certain personality type or isn't, the studies talk about what qualities create successful instigators, because really an entrepreneur is an instigator.
Yeah.
So actually, the other thing is that women are still a minority in business. Entrepreneurship, it's a bit higher, but and also along these lines, a very low percentage of the patents that are granted are to women. I forget the exact number, but I mean, it's low, it's single digits. And it goes up a bit when there's a male name and a a female name on the patent, it goes up a bit. So this is, to me, this is telling. So this is a great book. This is called Innovate Hers. And it's about success. It profiles successful women entrepreneurs, but also they talk about exactly what you're asking. What are the qualities that create someone who's more likely to be successful as an entrepreneur? And of course, risk-taking is one of those, without a doubt. And also the ability to think outside the box, to be creative. And getting through and over the obstacles. In my case, beside the obstacles I was facing, other than the fact that I knew nothing about the sporting goods industry, is that I have a disability. I have epilepsy that I take medication for every day. And so that's why I didn't have a driver's license. So I had to get over that, get through that, and deal with all those other things. But it taught me, having epilepsy all my life, taught me how to be a creative problem solver. Like, okay, can't drive, how do I get to work? Okay, I have to be careful when I swim, how do I be responsible and still do what I want to do? So being creative and a creative problem solver, I think, are so important.
Yeah, and that, just hearing what you talk about that, I mean, even being kind of agility, and you sort of like had these supposed obstacles, but you figured ways around them and to make your life work. I mean, that's it's a good lesson right there for sure for all of our students. Yeah, and I think, it's funny, I was thinking of Madeline Kunin when she was governor at the time, and she had a Pearls of Wisdom, I think was the book. And I remember interviewing her a few times, and she talked about just women in general, sort of this imposter syndrome, like I'm not good enough. I don't want to run for office. I need to take 10 classes before I even think about it. And then you've got men who are like, no, I'm electable right now. These sort of this dichotomy. But I loved how she just was like, you're going to do the work to try and become better, but you're probably better than you think, and you have a chance at doing things. You should have more confidence in yourself than you probably do. But then also to figure out how to, whatever the obstacles are, like you kind of overcame them, and then put yourself in a position to, to make it happen. So I think that's a great message, especially for our young women at our schools that may not think
Well,
they are ready.
yeah. And you mentioned the imposter syndrome, and I felt like a fraud for years, like I'm putting on this mask and this costume, and people are taking me seriously. If only they knew. And I think a lot of people deal with that, and you just have to soldier through your fear, because that's really what it is. It's like they're going to find out.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. And I think somehow not, getting rejected is going to happen throughout a lot in life. And we tell students, try not to crush the dream, but it's going to happen. You're going to apply for jobs, you're not going to get them. And to just sort of like, don't let that crush, your desire. Like you said, kind of your ambition about what you care about. Yeah, then I was thinking too, someone had mentioned they'd read your bio, and I think it's really interesting. You were inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame. I'm sure you went to a ceremony. I'm assuming, was it in DC maybe?
It was in DC. There were a lot of people there. It was in a huge auditorium. We had to walk across the stage. I mean, it was really meaningful for me, and also to receive national acknowledgement was really, that was the end of the imposter syndrome, sort of. But really, it was, after I sold the business and went on with my life, and people had always introduced me as the jog bra lady, and it annoyed me because I felt there were so many other things I had done for nonprofits, and that were more important than the sports bra. But I was wrong, and the culture told me I was wrong, because 40 years later, I'm still getting calls for interviews, and because the sports bra really for me, running empowered me, and it was very important to me. And athletics as a young person had not been important to me. I skipped gym class, but this was different. So when I realized that the same empowerment that I'd experienced, the sports bra was making that possible for all these other people and women. And that's why it made a cultural difference. Title IX happened in 1972, but Title IX, although it could give money to institutions, couldn't give young women, the confidence and the comfort to go out on the field. The sports bra did that. And if you look at the statistics now between the number of girls and women who are participating in sports in 1977, let's say 1977, now it's like way up here. The difference is huge. Now it's, instead of being, I wish I should get better at learning how to quote statistics. But I mean, it's huge, the difference. And that's when I could accept that the sports bra wasn't as, that it was more important than I had realized in the doing of it.
Yeah.
Do you know,
Well,
it's
it
also
sounds-
credited with starting the whole athleisure. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's credited with changing the fashion world.
Yeah, I'm sure. I love the Title IX analogy. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think a lot of people think about it that way. They think just, in terms of, did so much for women's sports from the 70s on through now, but then your contribution kind of bringing that together is amazing. And being at that, at the Hall of Fame, Inventors Hall of Fame, that seems long overdue. I mean, it's kind of surprising. I guess it just took a while for people to realize the true impact of it. That must have been cool to be there with other, entrepreneurs, famous, you've got, I mean, the Wright brothers. Yeah, you have some pretty big
Well,
names at the.
well, actually, it's interesting because one of the staff at the Hall of Fame pointed out to me that we were unusual, not only because we were women, which was unusual, but because we were entrepreneurs, that most inventors don't go into business. They're either working already for NASA or a tech company or something, and they're happy at that. And those companies, when you sign on, they say whatever you come up with is our product. So it is actually unusual that an inventor is actually also an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've had students ask about that too, and I think like even when I was at UVM, we'd write stories about researchers at UVM that were coming up with these ideas, but they just loved the science of it. They didn't want to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And then there was the whole sort of property rights and the how much the university would get or if it would get spun off. But yeah, that's really interesting because I know we do have students who would probably rather not launch a whole business, but they love the science and just to be an inventor. But that's an interesting distinction. And I guess you could be both. You could kind of have an idea and then sort of partner with a startup and sort of do it together, I guess. But yeah, but you being recognized as an entrepreneur woman as well. Yeah, I bet that is pretty unique, especially from that era.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. And
yeah.
the other part of that though is, like, I always thought of myself as creative and the visionary, but I, as you mentioned, I could run a business. I knew and I didn't know I could, but it wasn't my passion. So I found the point is to see if you want to go forward, to find the person that fills your gaps. And so I partnered with someone who was really interested in the production and keeping that going, and all of it, which I didn't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah, that
So
was probably harder to find back then. I mean, here you come to Hula and you've got, wherever you go and there's 50 people who do all these things. But back then you had to ask questions like, who can help me with this? I mean, you did obviously some pretty good networking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we all did.
Yeah.
There any other questions or things
Yeah,
that I?
just one other, and then we're getting close on time too. So we did have a couple questions about pathways. So a lot of our students who are, say, juniors and seniors in high school now, some will go to college, some will get some training or micro credentials and go to a different field. Do you think there's any particular pathway post high school to become an entrepreneur? I mean, is it wise to go major in entrepreneurship somewhere, or do you just get in the industry you're interested in without a degree? I suppose it varies.
Well, I think the pathway one should follow is the path of the heart. This has to do with what drives you? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? And then figure out how you can better pay attention to that or learn about it. That's,
I
you know,
that's No, I think that's a that's great advice and perfect place to leave it unless you have anything else you'd like to say. That's that you've really defined sort of like the skills you need to be successful, but then if you don't have the passion or the heart for it, it's probably not going to happen.
no, and you're going to be miserable.
That's a great point. A lot of people end up in careers that, well, I did have one other quick one. Someone asked what you thought your life would be like if this never happened. You never pursued the idea. You ever think about that?
Yes, yes, because it was a lot of hard work. I mean, I was traveling all the time, strange places, with strange people. I was in charge of the sales and marketing end. Um, so yeah, I've thought about that, and I would hope that I would have written more books than I did go on. I mean, that's why I sold my business. I wanted to go back into the studio, I wanted to make art, and I wanted to write. And I was able to do that. So, and I would like to think that if this had never happened, um, I would have followed that path and made it work for me.
Hmm. Yeah. And you've written a few books, is that right?
Um, really, I helped write a textbook for the Women's Small Business Program.
Oh,
I've also written a book about, it's an applied philosophy about the importance of true beauty in our lives. And I'm not talking about glamour or physical appearance, but true beauty. And that was truly a work of the heart. And then the other book, it's more recent, is this one, Unleash the Girls, which is this story in greater detail.
yeah. Is that available? Can people buy that on Amazon? And
Both books can be found on Amazon or Barnes and any online. And you can go into your local bookstore and see if they have it. If not, they can order it. They get all their books from Ingram. So
okay. Yeah, this sounds like a night the two books together actually sound like they might complement each other in some ways. Different, but
yes, they I would guess Beauty is Action would explain and illuminate some of the points I'm making in Unleash the Girls.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I appreciate it. This has been great. I'll share a link so people can order the books. And I think they might serve as some good talking points for some of the classes just to dive into these topics. And then we can share the video. And I know the teachers will share with their students. So we really appreciate it. It's been great insight and you taking the time and sharing your journey with us.
it's my pleasure. It's totally my pleasure. You know what I would have done if I hadn't done this? I would have been teaching.
Mm,
So,
yeah, I could see that teaching, writing, all the things that you
right.
like. Yeah, yeah, this will be something we'll share widely. And if we get more questions, would love to send them your way if students have other questions. And
Sure.
yeah,
No
okay.
problem.
Really appreciate it. We'll stay in touch and thank you so much.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks you. Okay, we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.